Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Education Matters with Jim O'Connell. It's a nice Tuesday afternoon out there, and this is August 21st. If you're watching live, the call-in number is 640-3091. That's area code 603-640-3091. And as always, you're very welcome to opine as to on any topic you would like. We like to keep it about education here generally, but sometimes we stray from that. We stray from that topic. In my case, it sometimes gets a little soccerish over here because I'm a soccer guy, and at this time of the year, I'm reminded that sign-ups are open for kids to sign up for fall leagues. It's getting kind of late actually for many, and there's always a problem for sports organizations that parents don't come back from vacation sometimes or get into the mode of looking at these things until they're ready to start school. But of course, that's the same time as these programs start, and it's not possible to just flick a switch and have a program ready for a number of kids when you don't know how many kids are there. So in the case of Manchester North, it's Manchester North Soccer League, mnsl.org. If you're anywhere else in the city, the soccer leagues you can Google them. There are 4 or 5, central, north, south, east, and west, and of course all the other sports too. So it's a good timely reminder for that. I know that many of you with older kids will be at that point in your lives where your young people are about to leave the nest, and I identify with those feelings of excitement combined with feelings of loss and recognition of change. But I have to say, I wish all the young people who graduated from Manchester schools this year and who are heading off to college this week and next week, or have already gone, I wish them all the best. As always, Manchester produces great kids, and every year they go on to do great things. A bunch of kids this year graduated Manchester high schools and ended up going to the military, some to the military academies, and some into the regular services. And many of those have already spent a month or two in basic training, etc. So it's important to recognize that fact. I was visiting Central High School this past week with a veteran who is deeply involved in combat veterans affairs, and works with men and women who have returned from active duty, wounded, some physically, but many psychologically and mentally. And so these are things that motivates him. And I was at Central because his child is an incoming freshman at Central High School, and so we were facilitating a tour of the building and programs to give his child an idea of sort of the landscape of the building and the landscape of the programs there. And it brought us to the auditorium at Central High School. And if you go in that building, there are gold star flags. There are 4 of them, which represent each flag represents a major war. So starting with the First World War. Now, it should be noted, of course, that Central High School was in existence during the Civil War. And so there are a lot of, mostly men, but thankfully, in more recent years, men and women who've walked the halls of our schools, who have gone on to give service to their country. But there are also a significant number of them who have given the ultimate sacrifice. And so my friend and I, as we were standing at the back of the auditorium in Central this week, were looking at the Gold Star flags, and he made the comment that it was quite moving to see the numbers, because there are some hundreds of Central graduates who gave the full measure of their lives in World War I and II, and then dozens who lost their lives in more recent wars from Korea to Vietnam to the war on terror. And those flags commemorate that. But my friend, who's deeply involved in these matters, and these things are central to his life, and he lives with them every day, sort of lamented the idea that these flags sat there and that perhaps people didn't realize what they meant. And I was very pleased to tell him that these flags are not just emblems of a time past and of forgotten people, but that every year on Memorial Day and some other occasions during the year, the band plays during one of its concerts approaching that period. They play music while a slideshow goes on, and the slideshow is the names and many times the faces, lots of times taken from old brown sepia photographs, sometimes very modern photographs of young men from the 2000s and women from the 2000s who gave their lives fighting for our country. And so he was moved by that and was gratified by the fact that Manchester students in our high schools sit in solemn silence and honor the memory of those who went before them. The people, it's very moving when you're sitting in the seats and you can picture the ghosts or the spirits or the presence of people who were in these rooms and in those halls and walked those corridors in your shoes. And I think it's very important. I had taken it for granted that people knew that this activity was an important part, an integral part of an education in Manchester. And I think a lot of people who spend their times throwing brickbats at the public school system and who criticize the public school system, in fact, often know little about the sense of citizenship and obligation to one's country, and to things like honor and tradition that our schools and teachers instill in the young men and women graduating our high schools. And so oftentimes when I hear people, I hear all kinds of misinformation and just unenlightened information, and people who talk about schools like Manchester West or Manchester Central or Memorial or MST, and whenever there is some incident, and thankfully it's been a while since there's been a major one now, but whenever something happens and the press and the people use it as an excuse to sort of beat these schools over the head. In actual fact, these schools are places where young people learn love of country and self-respect and the things that we expect our young people to have. And so I think it's important that you know these things and are aware of these things. Our schools do a wonderful job in that regard, while being vibrant and active places. And every year at graduation, the mayor this year, Mayor Craig, asked those who had committed to military service to stand up for a moment, and lots of recognition for different accolades, and different accolades are given to people for different achievements during graduation of our high school students. But there's always a moment comes when those kids who have decided to serve our country are asked to stand, and it always. I've been at graduations now for the last 6 years, and it's always moving to see the number of young people willing to who do stand up and who are off doing us and the community proud and themselves proud. So kudos to them. This is one of the things that parents are going through, thinking about those of us who are parents of older children, thinking about packing up our sons and daughters and packing their bags to send them off to wherever they may be, or kids who are off to start a job or whatever it may be, starting their new lives. On the other end of the spectrum, there are those parents who are taking or will be taking their littlest children or very little children to school for the first time. And it's not so long ago that I can't empathise with or recall how emotional and even traumatic it was dropping off one's child for the first time at the school door or the school gate, and seeing them, toddle up the pathway or in the door to kindergarten or first grade or whatever it may be. And so my heart goes out to those people, and I can only say that a year after it has gone by, it is forgotten by most of us because it's traumatic at the moment, and then after a day or two, it's not so traumatic anymore. And I can assure you that even for the most sensitive of children, pretty much 30 minutes after class has started, the children are happily playing with their neighbour and starting to enjoy the experience of socialising with other kids. And you only need to see, common sense tells us this, right, that we as parents get way too nervous about many things, and the first day of school is one of those. Like many things, everybody does it. I've never met anybody who has said to me that their life changed because they remember being dropped off by mom or dad the first day of school, and they were so traumatized that they were incapable of sort of leading a fulfilled life. So it's a momentary thing, but it is a heart-wrenching thing. And then there's that's the parents' perspective. And then, of course, for teachers, I was delighted to see a teacher who was on Facebook earlier today. A teacher, and I'll single her out because I just happened to read it a couple of minutes ago. It was a teacher at Hillside Middle School, Marge Breton, who was talking about it being, and I can't remember what she said, but I think she said it was her 22nd year or 32nd year, or I might even have it right here, but teaching. But what was delightful about her, 2-sentence post was just that, that despite her years of teaching, she's still excited to, it should be right here on the top of my feed, but she was still excited to meet her new class and to get started on the school year. And how wonderful a thing that must be to walk into a school and to a school building where a teacher is not jaded, not a little bit upset because the days on Hampton Beach have come to an end, or the days of sitting at home and tidying one's house or whatever people may do are coming to an end. But to hear a teacher, and I know from speaking to teachers that most of them are in that category where they're excited to get started with the school year, and they teach because they love teaching, because they love kids, and so that should warm all our hearts to know that is the case. I know from talking to teachers also that many of them have been preparing for the school year to start by doing the kind of things they need to do to be prepared. I want to go back to that in a second, but I just wanted to finish. We talked about parents and their outlook, and and then the teachers. But of course, most important of all, and often forgotten in our conversations, are the students themselves. And we, other than that first day at school type scenario, I think we as parents just take it for granted. For us, it's a sort of perhaps many of us are. Not relieved may not be the word, but are very happy to sort of bring some sense of order and stability and normality back to our households, so that kids get up at a predicted time and go to school, and we get to go to work and pick them up in the afternoon or have them dropped home or whatever it might be. And so many of us just treat it as, here's another year, let's get going. I think for many students, the perspective is very different. For some people, I'm sure there are students who are very excited to go back to school, and many of them are kind of dread it. I think truthfully it's a combination of both, because most kids don't really want to be hanging out on their own or with one or two friends, and are very happy to be back in the mix with a lot of their pals and having a good time and learning and moving forward. And of course sports are beginning, and so for kids, it's an exciting time. And for kids, we have not just that first aid thing, but for kids who are moving from one grade to another. When you're an elementary school kid, if all of us can remember back that far, it's a big deal going from third to fourth grade. Oh, I'm a big girl now. I'm going to be in fourth grade, and there's trepidation and anxiety about who's going to be in my class and where I'm going to be sitting and who my teacher is, and so I remember that being a big deal in elementary school. And then there's transition from elementary to middle school, and then from middle school onto high school. And each of those transitions, I think a lot of kids going to high school for the first time are intimidated by it, and especially if you're going to a larger high school. I talked to a young lady the other day who was coming from a private school with just 30 or 40 kids in it in the state of New Hampshire, and about to embark upon her career at Central High School. And so that's a big leap. But also, in her case, she happened to be very excited about the opportunities for things like the Maskers theatre group and the choir and orchestra groups and music, and so. So it's this combination of sort of anxiety and excitement. So it's a fun time of the year. To get our sort of dates right, if you didn't know already, the first day of school will be Wednesday, September 5th. So because Friday the 31st is a professional day, so teachers go back on Friday the 31st, and then they're back. They also have a professional learning day on Tuesday, September the 4th. So teachers and administrators will be in school starting on the 31st. But students go back starting on Wednesday, September 5th. Now, just to be aware, just the following Tuesday, 1 week later, is there's no school on that Tuesday, the 11th, because of voting. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that I would encourage you all to get out and vote. It's important. There are many important decisions to be made regarding our schools. In my worldview, not seen like this by everybody, I realize, but those of us who are strong advocates for public schools can see this ongoing assault on the public school system in the state of New Hampshire. And there was a toe-to-toe battle on School Bill 193 last year, and it was very narrowly shot down in the end. And those battles need to be fought again by a new set of legislators in Concord. So it is very important. I met one young man the other day who had just come out of voting at City Hall, because you can those people who are not going to be around can vote absentee already. So their votes have been cast. I spoke to this young man who was a friend of one of my children, and he had just completed voting. So first of all, he should be commended for voting, because around 25% of 18 to 25-year-olds vote, very sadly, as opposed to 60 to 70% of people 65 plus. But this young man had voted, but he voted for let me see. So he voted down the ticket from executive council and congressional district and senator and then after that, didn't vote for the state representatives from his ward in the city because he said to me, "Well, I didn't really know them," and so I commend the young man for voting. At the same time, the idea that you have the honour and privilege of being able to cast a vote and deciding what kind of schools we might have and whether they'll be funded properly or not. And you know, as a 19 or 20-year-old or 18-year-old, you didn't think it worthwhile to do your homework to find out who supported your schools and who didn't. I found a little disappointing. But I have to say, and we talked about this time of the year and students going off to college, please, please, please talk to your students in your house if they're in your house. Talk to your neighbours, the graduating classes of this year, the kids going off to college, the ones who will be the absentee ballots, the ones who will be out of state or out of town. Go to City Hall and go in and register. You'll have an absentee ballot will be mailed to you, and there's no excuse for not voting. Wherever you may be, in whatever state you may be. And if you're not going to be in the city or in your ward on September 11th, then you can go to City Hall right now, today. Well, it's probably too late today, it's 6:21, but you can go at this time, and any day during the week you can go and vote as an absentee voter and cast your vote in the upcoming primaries that will be on September 11th, and then the election proper will be on in November. I think I might have said September earlier. The primary is September 11th, and then the election proper. So, you know, obviously, I'd like you to vote for candidates who are going to support public schools. And in my world, where I come from the way I look at the world, you would imagine that everybody would be in the category of, you know, these are the candidates who support public schools and want to see great public schools. And then the group of people who don't want to see great public schools should be, I don't know, like pretty tiny. In actual fact, there's a substantial number of people over here who are not big fans of public schools, and they have a loud voice and are politically active, and they know who they are, and they're very proud to be who they are. We just disagree. For those of them that might be watching this show or thinking, there he goes again attacking us or something. You know, this is just a different. You know, I just believe that public education is the bulwark of a strong society. I think it is the basis on which economic well-being is based. And so, to me, strong, well-managed, well-funded public schools are the most important thing that we as a society can do to ensure that we have a vibrant community as we grow older. And it saddens me, of course, and one of the reasons I do what I do when I come here and talk is because I attempt to offer a counter view to those who do not support public education. I talked about a moment ago about teachers preparing for classes and coming in. And those of you who are regular watchers will know that last week I had two members of the MEA, the Manchester Education Association, otherwise the Manchester Teachers Union, on the show last week. And it wasn't apparent to me, even though it was spoken about, it somehow didn't sink in with me during that conversation that they were talking about working to contract, starting once they go back to school on, they go back to school on the Friday the 31st, students on September 5th. And so I find that understandable, but regrettable, and I regret that we're at the point that we're at, where teachers don't have a pay contract or a contract for terms and conditions and pay. That the city fathers and mothers, I guess we can say, that the city leadership couldn't find a way of ensuring that some funds would be available in order that teachers could get some increase in pay for this coming year and into the coming years. And that hasn't happened, and so we'll wait to see what happens over time. I do know that this day week, if I'm correct, there is a non-public session of the school board is going to meet on the Tuesday. If I can I think it might be on my little calendar here. So yeah, at 6 o'clock on Monday the 27th of August, there's a non-public meeting of the special board of school meeting. And I don't know this, but I'm just presuming that will be the non-public. A part of that will be contemplating or addressing the teacher contract issue. It may also have something to do with the fact that there are large numbers of positions in the school district that are unfilled at this time. And I mentioned it last week briefly. Well, let me just finish with the point about the teachers for a minute. I think that teachers rightfully ought to be aggrieved at their situation, but I think that they are too timid in their response. Sometimes the squeaky wheel treatment is what is, that rule of the law of the universe needs to be recognized, because it does apply, and you could ignore it, but you ignore it at your peril. If you're quietly acquiescing to something and having nice, happy little negotiations behind closed doors, which they may or may not be, I think the people deserve to know the facts, and then people should can be rightfully outraged or rightfully pleased based on the outcome, because they have a knowledge of what's actually what the situation is. The two ladies I had with me last week, we spoke for an hour. We covered a lot of things, and they were not able to talk about the contract directly because of the fact that it's under negotiation. But I think that they and their members need to inform the public in no uncertain terms about the situation, the comparative situation of teachers in Manchester as against teachers in other school districts, and then the situation of teachers writ large, teachers more broadly. Because generally speaking, teachers are undervalued in our society. And I particularly want to address, and I addressed it briefly last week, I want to address this idea that keeps being repeated by those who refuse to recognize that we need to properly fund our schools. And one of the items that is constantly repeated, and it's a bit like listening to Donald Trump saying no collusion, or that the inquiry into his administration's behavior. Given that there have been 36 people convicted of something or charged with some crime, you can keep saying it as much as you like. But let me go back to this in a second. We've got an incoming caller. Hi, caller. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Sandy Paradise.
Hi, Sandy.
I'm so glad you have this program. I enjoy your program. Education does matter.
Yes, it does.
Education matters, but it does matter. And public education especially, because I'll tell you, I talk to people at church, grandparents, great-grandparents, and I tell them about what's going on our federal level, and how the head of the education department there
Betsy
would like
DeVos
to get rid of public education. And I know, I watch enough politics, and I've been in politics since I was 25. I've always enjoyed it. My dad and I always got involved in it. Excuse me. And the teachers are going to have to get more vocal. Mm-hmm. People are going to have to realize, a lot of people don't realize what's going on. They have no idea. Our Secretary of Education or Department of Education, they had Betsy, they have no idea because they don't watch it. They say, "Oh, I don't watch that stuff. I don't watch the news anymore."
Right.
But I said you should,
Right.
because I even am concerned about my grandchildren, and now we are having a William Patrick O'Neill Blossman, and we are going to have a James, a great grandchild, James
Wow.
Nicholas Blossman.
Congratulations.
And, excuse me. Thank you. And I just, I explained to them, their mother and father went to public schools and then went to public colleges. And my children did too, UNH, Keene, New Hampshire College. But, to me, the state doesn't give enough money towards, like, UNH. Two of my grandchildren went to school, one in Boston, one in New York. Do you know they paid less than they did at UNH? And that makes me very sad.
Well, I'm going to take that up. I'm going to take that up in a second. I appreciate the call. Thank you for being a loyal watcher and listener, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
I hope so, Jim.
All right.
Because I really do. I talk to people at church.
Yeah.
I talk to people whether I'm in McDonald's or I'm somewhere where they have small children. I ask them where they go to school sometimes. And being almost 81 years old, they kind of, they kind of let me talk a little bit.
Yeah.
And then people that I know that I realize don't do that, that they just don't, they're not interested. And I am. My husband and I will be married 61 years in September. And I'll tell you, we were from the South End, and our family worked very hard. And then we weren't able to go to college, but we worked hard to save our money so our children
could go to college.
And then they married people who went to college.
Right.
All are still married, and we have 8 grandchildren, lovely grandchildren. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, I'll tell you, I keep it up. I don't let go. I ask where they go to school, and like I say, whether I'm in a store or something, and the little one is crying or something, I'll say, "What are you crying for now?" And I'll get up a conversation, whether they're people that haven't been in America too long, or they have. We have Pakistan people that live across the street from us. They go to SANU. They go to Manchester Community College.
Right.
Lovely family. Well, anyway.
So I'm going to have to let you go.
I'm all for education. Anyway,
okay,
my
good.
husband and I have always been for education for a long, long time.
All right. I'm going to interrupt you right there because we're going. Sorry. Can you hold on to it? Because I've got to get on to another thing. But if you can hold on to it, we'll talk about it next week because I got a dash.
All right.
But
well, listen,
good to chat.
I just want to mention one other thing to you.
Okay.
I think that they should. I don't know, but if you want to pass this to some people, I am going to Arthur Adamakis at Memorial and so on. I think that one of these years they should have a woman have a room named after them, or something named after them. We have a lot of men, that are their rooms, the buildings are named after them.
All right.
Catherine Labaniris, who just recently passed away, God bless her. She took care of her family. She was one of the most educated people I've known, and she helped so many people in different wards, not only her own ward. And I want to see something done for her.
To recognize her.
I believe I'm going to go to the alderman or the school board and try to recommend something because.
Or send a message to send a message.
Articulate and adversary. I'll let you go so you can continue your program.
All right, thank you.
But I think if there was more people like us,
we'll keep the fight.
That could get to these other people, it might help.
Right.
Anyway, God bless you.
Thank you, and God bless
you. Keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. What a wonderful lady who has given a lot of her life to the Manchester school system and to Manchester, and she makes some wonderful points. And I think most people, the reality is that shout as much as one likes, etc. Most people trust that their politicians and their public and city leaders are there and will do the right thing, and that sort of wiser heads will prevail and the right thing will happen. And sadly, we live in a society today where not everybody on the same page, so to speak. And within the spectrum of people, we can disagree about lots of things. But there's a fundamental line that I think is crossed by some, which is this idea that public schools are a public good or not, and of course they are. And the truth of the matter is, as I said when I was talking about the veterans and those who had given their lives, etc., from our schools, the truth of what happens in our schools and the way that they are managed and the way that they are run and the things that people learn in there is very different from the view that is sometimes expounded by those who simply don't know any better. I hear this constant nonsense about civics and how civics aren't taught in our classes and everything, and it's complete garbage, right? Kids can't graduate school, the Manchester school system, without having been taught civics, and that's as a specific subject. But also, of course, they're learning civics all day, every day, and so, but you'll hear this stuff going on, and it's completely false. And I find it troubling to be constantly pushing back against lies and half truths and mistruths. Because what we often find, what I found is that you get a parent who has some axe to grind because of some problem they had at one particular school at one particular time, and oftentimes it's the My Johnny syndrome, like their kid couldn't possibly have been wrong, or they couldn't possibly have been them, and so they're looking for somebody to blame for things, and they reach out to blame a school. Now, that doesn't mean that schools are always perfect and that everybody in schools are perfect, but they do a heck of a job. And teachers are doing a heck of a job all day, every day, and continue. All you have to do is look at the long list of wonderful young people who have come out of our public schools and the contribution that they make to our society, etc. So back to where I was. One of the things that I was saying before we had the call was that an example of it was this idea that civics are sort of, kids aren't taught respect anymore and they're allowed to do whatever they want, and that's just a whole load of hogwash. You know, you go into any of our schools and any day of the week and the corridors are quiet and kids are respectful and they're sitting and learning and they move from one class to the other without excessive fooling around or anything else. So people should actually know something of what they talk about before they go on. But besides the issue of civics being taught in our schools, there are so many other things that people are uninformed about and just and simply don't understand the way in which our schools work, and so that's it's troubling to hear people ramble on about things that they know little about. One of the things that the thing I was getting to was this idea that teachers have it so good that they're lining up to come into Manchester, and that if it was that bad, that teachers would be leaving, or we wouldn't be able to find teachers for jobs. Well, the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, that teachers are leaving, and we can't find teachers for jobs. And in this strange world we live in the year of our Lord 2018, where Rudy Giuliani says truth isn't truth because he's a lying you-know-what, and anybody looking at him knows that he's a lying you-know-what, incapable of telling the truth, actually, maybe even incapable of recognizing it. But the truth of the matter is, despite what some of our local aldermen and school board members say, mostly aldermen, about people lining up to come into Manchester, the facts are the facts, and you can go look at the list of vacancies in the Manchester School District and you can see it for yourself. So they can lie to you as often as they want. They can come on public television and repeat this lie despite being told that it's not true, despite being informed it's not true, and despite that knowledge still continue to tell you that they never had it so good and our teachers are spoiled, and we don't have a problem with getting good teachers because they're lining up like planes coming into Logan. The fact of the matter is, when I look at the Manchester School, and any of you can do this tonight, right now, live if you wish, and you go on the Manchester School District website and you can look at the positions vacant in the Manchester School District today. Now, that implies that these vacancies are either people who retired. Now, I don't know the exact numbers yet for this, but around 20 to 30 teachers is a good average number of teachers per year to retire out of the Manchester School District. Some years less and some years a little more, but that's a good ballpark number, I believe, over recent years. So the fact that we're sitting here on the week before school starts, and when I go and I look at the Manchester School District website for employment and administrators, there are 2 administrative positions that are still being advertised for that we don't have people in for the start of the year. There are 5 administrators with certification, so administrators who require certain certain certifications. There are 28 athletics coaches or activities directors who have not been found yet for our school system. 28. In the elementary schools, there are 15 job openings for elementary school teachers. This is not cleaners. This is not maintenance staff. This is not nurses. This is not ancillary workers. This is not paraprofessionals. This is not sub-teachers. There are 15 elementary school teacher jobs vacant in the Manchester school system that have not filled at this time. There are 3 high school teaching positions not filled a week before school starts. There are 12 middle school teaching positions not filled before we start school. There are 3 school department support people missing, 1 person missing from school food and nutrition services, and student support service teachers, 19 vacancies. Substitutes, well, there's an add-on for 3, so it's an open ad. There are 3 positions advertised, but multiple people are required under each of those 3 positions. And then support staff, 59 vacancies for support staff. And if you go into support staff, because you can click into these categories, and you can see that of the 59, 45 of them are paraprofessionals. And to give an example, so that those of you who are out in the real world listening to the liars lying to you, I know those are harsh words, but either alderman stop saying that our schools have got more teachers than they know what to do with, and we don't have a problem hiring people, and everything's fine, and we don't need to bother about this, and it's okay having the least well-funded school system in the state, and it's okay having the least number of teachers per student in the state, and this is all fine because we live in Manchester and we've got very low expectations for our students, for our schools, and for our society. That's what your aldermen who are saying this are actually saying to you. And I strongly believe that you should say to such aldermen, when they stand at your doorstep smiling, saying, I'm going to hold the line and I'll make sure that not another penny comes out of your pocket, I would turn the tables on them and say to them, what you're going to ensure is that Manchester is the least well-funded school district in the state and continues to be so, and that we are struggling to get teachers and to give our kids what they need because you, sir, or madam, are unwilling to do the job you're being elected to do. Now get from my doorway and find somebody else to vote for you. That's what I would suggest. If you want to know where these people are all missing, so there's a special needs teacher in the autism program that is needed at Smith Road. There's another paraprofessional at McLaughlin Middle School, advertised available for 9/5, starting on 9/5, the first day of school. Paraprofessional for special needs at Southside Middle School. Paraprofessional for, just support staff paraprofessional for Webster Elementary School. Paraprofessional, special education part-time required for Hallsville. Paraprofessional required for Webster. Paraprofessional support staff required for Smith Road. Paraprofessional special needs required for Manchester West High School. Paraprofessional special education required for Manchester Central High School. Paraprofessional special needs required for McLaughlin Middle School. Another special needs, Highland Goffs Falls. Special education, Highland Goffs Falls. Special needs pre-K, Highland Goffs Falls. Bakersville paraprofessional support staff. Manchester School of Technology, special needs. Paraprofessional, Highlands Goffs Falls, another one. Highlands Goffs Falls again. District-wide, special needs applicants for the applicant pool. Wilson, paraprofessional, Wilson School. Beach Street School. Beach Street Special Needs Paraprofessional. Beach Street EL Paraprofessional. It's English language learners. McLaughlin, another special needs. Parker Varney, more special needs. Middle School at Parkside, paraprofessional. Highland Goffs Falls, Weston. I'll just run down through them. McLaughlin again, Gosler Park, Memorial High School, West High School, McLaughlin Middle School, Webster, Middle School at Parkside, Southside Middle School, Southside Middle School, Southside Middle School, Smith Road, Smith Road, Smith Road, Northwest, Webster, Webster. So we can go on, Southside Middle School. You can go read them for yourself. Wilson. The candidates coming to your door at the state level, because they won't, in some cases, sadly, our school board members are there for another 12 months. But candidates who are running for state office who are coming to your doors, there are some people coming to your doors who voted to reduce the funding for Manchester schools from Concord in the past year. There are members of that you will be asked to vote for in the city of Manchester who voted to lower the amount of funding for our public schools. Those people should be held to account, and their mumbo-jumbo and their excuses and their prevarication, it should be pushed to one side, and it should be very simple. When you're up in Concord, did you or did you not vote to reduce the funding for public schools in Manchester? And if you did, well, how dare you? And shame on you that you, as a public representative, voted down money for Manchester schools at the state level because of political ideology to protect your seat, so that you come down here and stand on the doorstep dancing from one foot to the other, telling me about how you're not going to spend another dime on schools in Manchester. Shame on you. And ladies and gentlemen, the people who support education, certainly those who have children in the public schools. But just like the lady earlier, what about those of you who've got grandchildren in the public schools and great-grandchildren in the public schools and neighbours in the public schools? How about those of you who've got no kids anywhere, never had kids, don't want kids, hate kids, but actually own a property in Manchester and would like to see your property prices rise at the same level as they do in many other towns? Your own self-interest, your sense of decency and of doing the right thing should dictate that you tell people who want to hide behind this. Everybody would love, if I were a politician, I'd love to stand on your door and say, I'm not going to spend another dime, vote for me. Because unless you're a simplistic imbecile, very strong language, Jim, I know. Unless you're a simplistic, uneducated, unthinking person, then you should understand that the person standing there saying, I'm not going to spend another dime, is actually telling you, the other side of their mouth is, I'm okay with how things are. Oh, by the way, we'll always get the part about we'll find savings. They'll find savings, all right. They'll find savings in the paraprofessional program. They'll find savings for lowering the amount of money a sub gets paid in Manchester. $10 per hour. $10 per hour. I was at McDonald's today, and there's a sign on the window that says $11 an hour. $10 an hour to be a paraprofessional or a sub in Manchester. You're going to go into a classroom to take over from a qualified teacher. You have to be qualified yourself. At least I think it's 45 credits or something. So most of a way towards a certification or an associate's degree in order to be a sub, I understand. And so you're getting paid $10 an hour, and I wasn't listing subs right now, I was listing paraprofessionals, and we can't get people. And believe me, some of the people who we can get, just picture, God bless those people, by the way, I know very many fine subs who should be paid a lot more than what they're being paid today in the city of Manchester. But they're also, you know, we're as a society, that's how we value sub teachers. Just let this sink in for a minute. In 2018, with close to zero unemployment, 2.7% unemployment in the state, with a huge problem with retaining young people and attracting families into our state, so we can have people to take the jobs in our growing businesses. Despite all of that, our cheap-minded and small-minded and little people politicians are okay with paying substitute teachers $10 an hour, and they can't get them, but they're okay with that. They ought to be shooed from the doorway. Many of them are nice people, and they should not be treated badly, but they should be held to account. If telling them they're all wrong and shouting them down is treating them badly, then treat them badly. But these are, I guess, in the end, economic views or political views or politico-economic views or whatever. But in the end, I strongly believe that we ought to be ashamed of ourselves spending less on education than every other district in the state of New Hampshire. It is appalling and just not unconscionable. It shouldn't be the case. So I'm going to give up on my long list of open vacancies. When I look at the middle school teaching positions as one example, because there are 12, and therefore it shouldn't take us a long thing. But we have, so there are social studies teachers missing at let me see, McLaughlin, Hillside, Parkside, and another at Parkside. For social studies that are available. Those positions are still available as of this time, and the jobs are available. Another point, is that there are a pool of teachers in any given year. There are the new students who come out of school, and those people are coming out of school and graduating in May, and they in anticipation of graduating, they know they're going to graduate, so they're not waiting till the day after they graduate out of their college to go looking for a job. And then we have teachers who are laid off in April or May or March, are given notice or what we call pink slipped, and told that they are no longer going to be needed. And so when you look here at the date posted for some of these jobs, well, actually, in fairness, the McLaughlin job was posted on May 24th, but the job at Hillside was posted on July 12th. And the job at Parkside was posted on August the 3rd. So now you're going, and another one was posted on August the 16th. So you're going to go out now when every other school district has had the group of students, whatever it might be, or the group of available teachers. Let's say there's 100 social studies teachers in the area, or 200. I don't know what the number. I have no idea what the number is. Maybe it's 50. But let's call it 100 just for the sake of argument. Or math teachers, or science teachers, or technology teachers, or computer science teachers, or history teachers. Do you think the best of them? Do you think the bright-eyed, shining example of a bright brain, smart, committed, sassy, capable, kind, loving, wonderful, highly qualified history teacher or science teacher or math teacher is hanging around until August 16th for the last one of these, until August 3rd, and August 16th, that they're sitting around waiting? Do you think they didn't take the job offer they got in Bedford or Londonderry or Pennacook or Concord or Portsmouth? They said, no, we'll wait and see what Manchester might come up with. And oh, by the way, when I do go to Manchester, I'll get paid below the state average for teachers in similar sized towns. And oh, by the way, my classes in Manchester will be bigger than the classes I'll have in, and this is statistically correct, provable, and a fact. Just go to the state website and you can see the numbers. So the liars can lie if they wish. But in Manchester, teachers have more kids in the classroom than any other school district in the state of New Hampshire. So not alone all those other caveats that I gave you, you also can wait around until August and then decide to come to Manchester. The fact that we have great teachers in Manchester is a function of the fact that we're lucky in one sense that the school district, I hate to say it, but it's been contracting so that we retain the core of teachers that we've had, that were here in the good days when Manchester paid well, and so we still have great teachers in our schools. So many of them. It's just amazing. But it gets harder and harder for administrators to find the good teachers when we behave in the way we do, and it could all be fixed tomorrow. It's a simple thing. It's not like we're not talking about a 20% increase in taxes in Manchester so everybody can't afford to buy sausages for dinner anymore. We're talking about simply saying that 1.6% increases when other towns and districts are increasing at 2 and 4 and 5 and 3%, that is not doable, and when it's sustained over time with growing needs and the boot on the neck of the school system by those who want to keep it in the subservience that it's in. They keep the boot on the neck while needs increase, and then of course the very same people are the first ones to condemn the school system if something is not right. What about the results? What results have we gotten? Why haven't they increased more than they have? While at the same time reducing the amount of staff, reducing the number of programs, in real terms, comparatively over time, reducing the compensation for staff, etc. So they are getting the result they require. This is the, make it so small you can put it in the bathtub so you can drown it scenario. And reasonable, good people like yourselves need to stop being so nice. And, don't stop being nice altogether, because we want nice. Nice is good. But stop being too nice and stand up and fight. And don't take this stuff for granted. Fight for your rights. Fight for the rights of the children. Fight for the rights of your neighbor. Fight for your own rights to have a city that we can all be proud of, with schools that we can be proud of. And that would be... What a wonderful thing this would be if people paid attention and voted correctly, in my word correctly, but voted in their own self-interest in the next, on September 11th, in the primary at least, and then again in November. So, ladies and gentlemen, another hour has gone by here at the desk of Education Matters. I appreciate you listening to me. I hope you've had some food for thought. I try not to be too forceful in my advocacy for public schools. In the end, I am a strong believer in Manchester, a strong believer in Manchester public schools, a great believer in the public good, and in all of us acting together in union and unison, that I have great faith that we can achieve great things, and that's what great communities are based on. So at the end of this week, I wish you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you all again on next Tuesday evening. Good night, and thank you.